Welcome to the Lovecars on the Grid podcast, your global motorsport roundup with me, Tiff, Needell and Paul Woodman.
Welcome to Lovecars on the Grid, your global motorsport podcast roundup. What an incredible weekend of motorsport. There was motorsport from continent to continent. Formula One in Spain, Indycar in the USA at Detroit, World Rally Championship in Italy, Sardinia. Of course, there's WEC at Le Mans, there's Formula E in Jakarta, Indonesia, World Superbikes in Italy, NASCAR in St. Louis in the United States, World GTs in France, BTCC in Thruxton. You got the Isle of Man TT race we'll have a quick chat about as well, and of course Caterham, which were in Zandvoort. So it was a proper international affair. Can you add any international flair to that, Tiff?
Well, before we go on this motorsport, I would like to point that I think probably was the event globally of the whole year, and that was the West Dean Village Fete, opened by Tiff Needell. I now pronounce our fate open. But amazingly, and this is incredible, it was a village fete that had an opening by some former Top Gear presenter, and obviously Lovecars now. But we had a flyover by the Red Arrows following, yes. And then a Spitfire came over about 4 o'clock. I don't know who's got contacts in the aviation world. I presume the Red Arrows were maybe practicing their Bournemouth parade for later in the year. But yeah, we had Red Arrows going over our village fete. Actually, I love village fete. They are so English and such. I think they're adorable. You know, little stalls. Of course, we had the falconry display and the sheep in the pen and the archery and the football. I mean, I think it's brilliant. Love
what are you doing
English
with
village
hang on,
fete.
you're a traitor because you're Eastie, not Westie.
I don't. I know. Which local enough to be invited. I think I've already opened the East Dean Fete and the Lockley Fete.
All right, let's
20
move
years,
on
so.
swiftly to Formula One because it was bloody amazing in Barcelona. There was so much action going on. The weather helped to cause a bit of action, and it was just when you start with the qualifying. Mercedes seemed to be back in it a little bit, which is good. But
yeah, I know.
Still another Max masterclass.
But I mean, you say amazing, but again, the amazing was qualifying. I mean, this is the problem with Formula One. The race, to be honest, was a bit of a bore draw. I mean, apart from George's fight up through the field from 12th to 3rd, tremendous run by George. But it's funny, these Mercedes, isn't it? It's sort of, they seem to muck up, and then George has got a car that's undrivable, and Lewis, I think, a few times had an undrivable car. And yet their race pace, they seem to be able to get their act together. Because when those cars go to depart firmly after qualifiers, they can't change that much, as far as I know. So I'm not quite sure. Obviously, Leclerc, he took his car to the garage, had a new rear end put on it because he thought it was handling so weirdly. So he started the pit lane. But qualifying was exciting. The rain was around, the track was damp. Perez did another Perez and put it. I've said this so often, this looking through the corner, they're obsessed with modern racing, and you put the wheels on the curbs, which are still wet, and round he goes. There's no grip on curbs when they're wet.
But surely that's obvious with any car. You put curbs on wet. You put wheels on wet curbs.
Yeah, but it surprises them. It's this obsession with looking through the corner. So it happens so fast, you almost need to look through. All these driving instructors and driver coaches are obsessed with you must be looking through the corner. So obviously you might drift slightly off easily.
But if you got your two wheels loaded that are on the tarmac, you're okay. But it's when you're loading the wet curbs, then you're not okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about qualifying because Charles had an absolute nightmare. His car looked really unstable, so he was out in P1, which is just incredible. And then two big names out in P2. We had Sergio Perez, who I'll come on to in a moment,
and George Russell,
of course. Just incredible. So it left it
and that
open.
moment. Has it been explained yet how the two Mercedes clashed? I'm still not quite sure. They both appeared to be trying to start a fast lap, but then apparently George had backed off because his previous lap had been bad, and Lewis caught him. I mean, I don't know how. I mean, they're so on it with the radio when you see them queuing up to start a lap. They're so precise, the engineers, with back off, get a clear.
For those of you that haven't seen it, it was the start of they were both going to start a flying lap, and George was overtaking a slower car, Ferrari, I think. Pulled out a little bit, and Lewis went into him at sort of almost 200 miles an hour.
George sort of had a slipstream from a car that was slowing in the middle of the track. So then when he'd had enough slipstream, he was going back to the left of the racing line. But then Lewis had this mega double slipstream and had decided to go past George on the left at that very moment. So, I mean, I mean, if Lewis thought George was going on to a fast lap, he shouldn't have even attempted it. But if Lewis thought that George had ended a fast lap, I don't know how the confusion came.
Well,
But,
what happened with three big names going out and with so much uncertainty? It meant that there were 7 different manufacturers taking the top 7 places on the grid, which is
Lando third, Lando
amazing.
McLaren.
I know, who would have thought that?
Hulkenberg, where was
Well,
Hulkenberg? Hulkenberg 7th. So Hulkenberg is doing an amazing job with the Haas. But in the race, it all fell apart, really, didn't it? Really.
oh, poor old Lando on the first lap. So again, for those who didn't see it, Lando had it coming together. I think it's turn 3 as early as that. Might have been
Lewis,
turn
yeah.
2. With
Well,
Lewis.
the front two checked up because they'd been round the first corner side by side, as Max sorted out the attack from who was attacking?
Carlos,
from Lewis, of course. Yeah, from Lewis. No, Carlos. Yes, Carlos. So they all checked up, and he ran to the back of him. So yeah, Lewis got up from 4th to 2nd, didn't he? And George from 12th to 3rd. Whereas Perez, we're talking about Perez. I mean, we must compliment Max, by the way, before our favourite Dutch commenter on our.
I'm fed up of saying Max Masterclass because he is. He's just in a different level. But my goodness, he's smug. At the end, that radio message. Oh my goodness, he's smug. He is the first. When things don't go his way, he's screaming and shouting like a little petulant child, and he was so.
You're upsetting. You're upsetting our Dutch person.
No, it doesn't matter.
Comments every time.
We say every week what a masterclass is. He's on a different
level. We did it, boys.
Yeah.
But he did, he did run well with some tyres that were, worn out and stuff. But the whole thing was under control from the word go, wasn't it?
But Sergio Perez, right, I'm going to be very controversial because I know he's a likeable character and he's had a couple of wins. He's sort of out of nowhere. He did nothing, then he came back. But I think he's got to go. I think Red Bull have got to get rid of him. He's just not good enough.
Talked about this, 2 or 3 times this year, I know. But it's such a difficult thing with these manufacturers' points, isn't it? They're desperate to have someone that's got a safe pair of hands. But Sergio at the moment isn't a very safe pair of hands, because he's throwing it off. He's not scoring points for the team. But who do you put in? Ricardo's sitting there in the Red Bull shirt.
Liam Lawson. He could be Ricardo's not the right person to get in my opinion. He's just.
Then you're risking a rookie. I know he's leading the Japanese championship. He's done Formula 2 for a couple of years. He's a faithful Red Bull protege. But then surely the idea is you should take Yuki. But because he's leading Red Bull's speed team driver.
Yuki's not doing himself any favors. Every time he gets on the radio, he's complaining to the team is saying, Yuki, could you protect the tires? Do you want me to crash? Do you want me to crash? Like, Yuki, chill out, man. But who do you get? That's the $1 million question because none of the rookies are doing particularly well. Sargent, who are the 3 rookies? Nick, De Vries, and
they got in Formula 2. They got Iwasa.
No. I mean, in Formula 1, the 3 that come in, the 3 rookies. So maybe Yuki, but surely no one's going to do as badly as Sergio Perez, as Checo.
Well, I think they worry about breaking a young driver's brains if they put Liam Lawson in and he's a second slower in qualifying, than Max. And Piastri's shown that if you've got this talent, this idea that, you struggle in Formula 1. Piastri didn't race for a year. And he's happily shadowing Lando at a very respectable pace, almost right on the same pace. So I would go for Liam Lawson, 100%. I like getting these young drivers a chance, but you worry that like Gasly and like who else fell in? Who followed Gasly in? It would ruin their whole. Oh, Albon, like Albon and Gasly, it might sort of shatter their confidence, as it were, because Max will be quicker than you.
Max is going to be quicker than pretty much anybody. I don't think there's anyone even in the same car. And maybe Max wants Checo because maybe he just wants to show
he likes Checo,
how bloody good he is. Well, does he like Checo? They had a big falling out last year, didn't they?
They did. And
he didn't let him win.
The track looked better with the 2 fast corners ending the lap, but didn't really change overtaking. Barcelona's still a nightmare. And the trouble is, it's all this the downforce because when they go through those fast corners. The front left tyre, I think it's got like sort of 2 tons of weight on it with the downforce and the weight of the car itself. 2 tons being forced to go flat out through a corner at 160, 70 miles an hour. It's, I'm still obviously disappointed with regulations. We're stuck with them for 2 more years, but they're not really creating overtaking until the tyres are different. And then you get tyre differentiation so you can go through the fast corner. In the first lap, they were all, I think after about 2 laps was like 1.5 seconds between each of the first 6 cars. They just dropped back. It was quite interesting in the end to say, it was quite a battle. Out front, it was stretched out. From 6th place, which was Lance Stroll, who was about 20 seconds behind Sainz in 5th, down to Yuki in 12th. So that's 7 cars. We're all coming by 12 seconds. So they were all going around in a close-ish formation.
Yeah, but
and I loved the.
Are you going to tell me the commentary?
Fernando, when he started catching Lance. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to overtake your son. No, it's all right. I'm just closing up because I don't want the pack behind me coming too close with it. Don't worry. Well, I'll wave at the crowd now. I'm not going to overtake your boy. Don't worry, everybody.
He was nowhere to be seen, actually, Alonso. He's been so solid all.
Well, he did his floor, didn't he? Did his floor.
Exactly.
I don't know when he did his floor. Was that
he went onto the gravel quite hard.
Was that in Q1? Did he do that?
Final. It was Q1 final.
And then he suffered all the way through because he only qualified. Where he qualified, where it was now.
He was.
I don't know where he came from.
He was 8th place. Stroll was 7th, and he was 8th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Stroll was 5th on the grid, wasn't he? Stroll was 5th on the grid.
I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
And talking of the last few laps, bloody Crofty. I know he's paid to make it entertaining, but the fuss they were making on Sky Sports about Sergio Perez, 3 laps to go, 4.5 seconds behind. This is going to be nail biting. It's going to go down to the wire. And every lap they're doing this countdown. There's only there's 2 laps left, and there's basically George Russell finished 3.4 seconds ahead of Gecko. So all this fuss they're making about, he's going to catch him. Oh, no. And it's going to be
a boring race. That's what you have to do. It's a boring race. You have to shout a lot, and then people think it's exciting.
My other Crofty bugbear was on lap 1. He said that is the worst possible opening lap for Lando Norris. Well, actually, it's not, because if he crashed his car and he was beached and he had to anyway. So it's quite dramatic. Sometimes.
Yes, he was still in the race, Lando. It wasn't the worst possible.
It wasn't the worst possible. It was pretty awful, but it wasn't the worst possible. Anyway, I do love Crofty, and I do love the Sky Sports commentary, because it is hard when you're there, and they're just non-stop relentless with the figures. And Martin Brundle's grid walk is just class. He just does that time and time again.
I still haven't got to bother him with that.
Oh, you should watch it.
All right, all right.
Right, let's get back to the racing. Standout driver for you. I mean, Max Verstappen yet again. Lewis and Mercedes.
Well, I think George for me. Obviously right. Max, but George Russell, I think. I love the bit when he thought it was raining. And it turned out his sweat was coming off and hitting the inside of his visor. That was quite
gorgeous George. So he sweats like the rest of us. But I thought it was quite an entertaining race, given forget Max out front, that was a given, but I thought it was quite an entertaining. I thought there was plenty going on, not many overtakes, but
it's just George's recovery was about the only thing that was happening, really.
Good.
Anyway, Formula 2, of course, down in Spain as well, and Ollie Behrman, Ollie, Britain's Ollie, 18 now, just the most complete race, almost Max Verstappen-like. When he first started Formula 2, he's a rookie in Formula 2, of course. He did Formula 3 last year and won races, but he burnt his tyres out early. They have to run the 2 sets of tyres in the main race. But this time, when he had pole position, pulled out a 4-second lead on the soft tyres, managing the tyres really well so he could run them longer than anyone else.
He looked really classy, really mature.
Really I mean, obviously, he's in the best team. He's always had to be very careful.
Kramer.
Sometimes you can really rave about a driver, and Ollie I'm raving about. But I would say the best drivers do tend to get into the best teams. And because Frederick Vesti, his seasoned campaign, his teammate, I mean, he only qualified 9th, I think it was, but got the reverse grid and came to win the reverse grid race. So Kramer actually won both races.
So remind me, did Ollie win the Autosport award? Did it?
No, he's never won it. I've got to find a judge, because he was beaten in both. He's beaten by Zach O'Sullivan, and who won it this year? Was it Taylor Barnard? Or no, it wasn't. It was Luke Browning won it this year, and Ollie was in that competition both years. And both years he was beaten by a more talented
Who are the judges
British
for the
driver.
Autosport award? I guess they're Autosport people, are they?
No, there's all sorts of racing drivers.
Why aren't you on the panel?
Derek Warwick, I think, is the lead panel, because he's a former BRDC man. And I did it once, but no, I'd probably be too controversial, upset someone. But it was a tremendous. I mean, Ollie has to be now, Oh, coughing! I'm coughing. I'm going to cough slightly. Where's my microphone? Coughing. he has to be Britain's next Grand Prix driver. You know, as far as I'm concerned, he will be Britain's. He's a Ferrari protege. So could he be Ferrari 2025? Could he be Haas 2024? Haas, Ferrari, Ollie in. Tempting.
That's exciting. That's exciting that we got somebody on the.
Yeah.
So somebody
well,
on
in Formula 3, we've got 4 of them. So we've got only one driver in Formula 2 who dominated that race, is now a championship contender, very much so. But in Formula 3, I tried to gloss over reverse grid wins because I'm not a big fan of them, because you get given a win because you're 12th fastest. But it just so happened that reverse race grid had 2 Brits on the front row, and they finished first and second. Zach O'Sullivan leading Luke Browning home. So that was good for Britain, although I don't see them as great race wins. In the main race, the main man was the pole position man, Pepe Marti, the Spanish boy, local, came dominated from the start. Zach got up to 8th from 12th. Hard to progress in Formula 3. Luke Browning, he was out on the first lap, so he didn't get much further. The other Brits, Taylor Barnard, qualified second in qualifying, but dropped to 9th, didn't go so well. Johnny Edgar, 15th, Oliver Gray, 18th. He was 2 spots ahead of Sylvia Flörsch, the young lady who's bravely trying to go 6th. Now, this is actually, to be fair to Sophia, or is it Sapphire? I don't know if it's Sapphire or Sophia. Sapphire, probably.
Sophia.
Is teams, because she is in the dogs team. So she was the quickest. She finished 20th, but she was the leading member of it. It's the Charouz team. And they qualified 26, 27 and 28. So you can't imagine they've sort of accidentally got the 3 worst drivers. And so it is still, even in Formula 3, when they're identical cars, there is this worry that if you don't get a good team, you'll look bad. So you can't write people off sometimes when they're mid-pack in Formula 2 or Formula 3 as not being quick enough, because, maybe if they had the Prema drive, they could be winning. It's a hidden mystery that annoys me, but something you should always be aware of. Steiner.
So it was an amazing weekend in Spain.
Lots going on.
Just on the Formula 1, Günther Steiner, he got a reprimand for his scathing comments with on the stewards the week before.
The Mercedes physios have been fined for going into the Parc Fermé or something. Wrong procedure. Rushing in with water or something. They've had fines today, cost them money.
Are you allowed to call everybody people now? Or have you got to say naughty?
No, people. People do. I'm sure you can all be people.
I'm not sure these days. So, is that enough for Spain, or do you want it? We could go on and on and on, but
I think that was enough.
We've got lots
to go through. Because you talk about race excitement, then there's always this comparison with IndyCar. A lot of people raving about the Detroit race, but actually, for once, I'm not going to rave on too much about IndyCar, because they went to this new Detroit track. And it was just a classic American city layout where all their roads are at 90 degrees. So it just had about 10, 20, 90-degree corners. And they were all, bar one, first gear. Now, I can't get excited about a race.
So dull. And then inevitably...
I'm not dull if they were driving it. I mean, it was really narrow and they were bucking and bronking and bumps.
But then you get people lunging every time there's first gear corners.
There was lots of that. Lots. That's entertaining if they keep on hitting each other. But however, we talk about drivers for Formula 1. Now, nobody would probably risk this in Formula 1, but some Formula 1 teams have got to start looking across the pond to this Alex Palau, this Spanish boy, who was champion in 2021. And he was on pole for Indy and was leading the Indianapolis 500, but he had a clash in the pit lane, which dropped him back to finish 4th. Then he goes from Indy at 230 miles an hour to Detroit, and he's on pole in Detroit. And he dominated the race. And I always call it Alan Prost-like. Yeah. He never looks quick. He's one of these drivers that just seems to be sublime. And everybody
Jensen was similar, wasn't he? Very
Jensen
Button,
on that style. And, I just don't, he's 26 years old. He did have that thing last year. Remember, he's a Chip Ganassi driver. Ganassi brought him in from Japan, where he won the Japanese Super Formula, where we've got Liam Lawson driving at the moment. But he tried to leave and go to McLaren in the middle of last year with the potential Grand Prix drive as a sort of end of the maybe IndyCar McLaren, then go to thing. But then Ganassi said, you're on a contract with me. So anyway, he lost that McLaren deal, so he's now firmly back at Ganassi. But, if I was a Formula 1 team, I would be seriously trying to get that man's name on a signature. because he just looks, and he's so fit and healthy at the end. He just finishes this 2 hours around this horrendous street, say, bucking and bronking, and he just does a perfect interview. He's the real deal. Will Power's
26
second.
is not young anymore.
No, he's mature. He's done racing. He's won Super Formula in Japan. He's won Indycar Championship. But he hasn't driven the Pirelli tyres. He wouldn't know how to manage the tyres. It's all about tyre management. And the commentaries now, in Formula 3, he's got these in the right window. They've got in the tyre temperature window. I get so bored of being told about managing tyres. I'm sure a really talented driver like Alex could sort that out.
But you get Max Verstappen in any car. He's going to drive it, and he's going to get the best out of the car. Forget managing the tyres. I mean, it's all such a load of rubbish. Like the commentators.
So Detroit entertaining.
Want to make it exciting. I think Lando should get out of his contract with McLaren.
I'm sure he's trying.
Go over to Red Bull. You imagine that. You imagine Lando, because they get on well, but that would be quite controversial for Max, because to see if Lando, we think he's the real deal, but would he be the real deal in the best car? I think he would.
They ought to have football style transfer fees. I think it would be much better. Okay, we'll pay 100 million for Lando. 100. What's the record football transfer fee? Over 100 million
now. Yeah, but what happens with football? For those of you who don't know, what happens with football is, of course, they'll have a signing on fee. Then they'll have salary as well, and their salary will be 2 million a week or something ridiculous, like Ronaldo will be on in Saudi Arabia, and Messi will be doing
great publicity. Ferrari put in bid for thing.
Yeah.
There was a good battle at the end. Lots of pace cars just finished Detroit. Rosenqvist barged past his teammate Alexander Rossi, the two McLaren drivers. There was a bit of fun. I'll just finish off that.
What happened with Indy Lights? I saw Jamie.
Indy Lights said 2 poles for Louis Foster, this British driver that's doing so well in America. Amazing. But had an awful year. Yeah. He got first race down to turn 1 hairpin. His teammate was right in his gearbox and decided to brake later than Louis. In fact, Louis was right in front of him, just punted Louis off. The second race, he started on pole again, but the race pace wasn't there. I think if he'd done the first race, he would have had more experience in racing traffic, the tactics. So he dropped to third. Jamie Chadwick was out there doing better. She's about 3 rows from the back, qualified about 14th or 15th, I think, and survived the first race, picked up places. I think she finished 11th, I think, in the first race. The second race, she was in the pits first lap. I think she had some contact with someone. So she's trying hard, Jamie, but still not getting up the right end of the field yet.
She can drive. It's a tough field out there, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know where they are next, but where are they next? Indy Lights.
In America somewhere.
It's not the end of the month somewhere.
One of the 50 states. Probably not Hawaii or Alaska.
Road America. It's the magnificent Road America next to the end of the month. The greatest road course in the world with every type of corner and the most fabulous scenes.
Good. Okay, let's go
World Rally.
Sardinia, World Rally. Sardinia, beautiful place. You ever been there, Tiff? Ever been to Sardinia?
No. Sounds like a good holiday place. It was a mud bath, though. Sardinia. It's right down opposite Italy, isn't it? Sardinia. I have been to Sardinia. I've been to Sardinia. They got that sort of pirate's flag, which I quite like the look of.
It's a big island.
But there was rally mayhem. It was a survival of the fittest sort of rally. Only 4 of the World Rally Championship cars finished reasonably well. Elfyn Evans, who was 4th, was 5.5 minutes off the pace. It was all about the water splashes and the rain. There were a couple of water splashes anyway with normal rivers, but they got deeper. And Ogier was leading. Sebastian Ogier having another one of his one-off-ish, occasional, but it's becoming more consistent. He hit his radiator too hard. He's going too fast, and they damaged the radiators. They flood the car. And then worse still for Ogier, he had a puncture just before the stage. I think he was still just in the lead at this stage, despite his radiator problems. And he had to change the wheel. It was all mud everywhere. And then about the 4th or 5th corner into the next stage, his foot went through the pedals between clutch and brake, or brake and throttle. And he just sailed on. Luckily, he wasn't going that quick. And he got stuck on a cliff edge. And he was out of the rally, killed him off. So things you have to think of: clean your shoes before you drive your rally car. So Escobar Calapi, who was chasing in the Hyundai, took the lead, but he saw Seb teetering on the cliff. So he backed off, thinking, okay, I'm leading now. But his teammate Thierry Neuville didn't know about this, so he was still flat out, and he overtook Escapacalapi. They had a formation finish then, first and second for Hyundai's, which they haven't won, I think, since last November. So I think Neuville's now up to about second in the championship as well, chasing Rovanpera. So it's all tight up there.
You taught me that with because we get plenty of rain in the UK racing. You taught me that with those little slip-on rubber
slip-on rubber shoes.
Over
they
your
should have
race
some of those in the rally car.
Yeah,
but
there you go.
When they try to change a wheel in a minute, they probably haven't got time to get their little slip-on cover shoes.
Yeah.
So it was Toyota's third and fourth, Rovanpera leading Evans. Sadly, Gus Greensmith, our WRC2 British challenger, he had a big shunt. He was out. So was Oliver Solberg, who's also been up the front dominating WRC2 with Gus. So fifth overall and winner of WRC2 was Andreas Mikkelsen from Skoda, who used to be in the World Rally Championship proper. So a bit of a mucky survival of the fittest, but a very happy Hyundai team.
Good. WEC, we go from WRC to WEC, and that was testing at Le Mans. Ryan Cullen was there.
Teasing. I want to be there. I'm not going to be there. I want to be there.
Did you see our video? Did you watch our video behind the scenes? You didn't even know it was coming out. I'm sorry, but
I've been retweeting your Porsche story, which everyone should now watch.
So
follow.
Tiff did an amazing Porsche Group C story, 40 years of Porsche, and it tells about Tiff's history. But that's for TV, so we can't show you that. But it's such a shame to not show you anything on that day or those couple of days, because it was so special. So we did a little bit of a behind the scenes.
Your version.
Yeah, well,
I want it copyright. You reused my opening script, which I've written. I noticed that. I want a credit for that one.
But have a look. If you haven't seen it, please do have a look. But of course, it's the week of Le Mans. Le Mans coming up this weekend, so they've all been out there testing and having
new
fun.
Le Mans. Well, it's all kicking off because it's all getting very exciting, because they said they wouldn't change the balance of power before Le Mans. They said it was fixed from the last race or whatever. But all of a sudden, fait accompli, and boom, they gave Toyota 37 kilograms, Ferrari 24 kilograms, Cadillac's 11 kilograms, Porsche 3 kilograms, just three. And Peugeot were left at the same weight because Peugeot had been at the back of the field all year. So
because of that wing, it's going to come into play now. That lack of wing.
Because the wingless wonder that everyone thought would be brilliant, I've been saying all along it won't work. They've all been saying, when they get to Le Mans, the wingless one will work. Well, the Peugeot was seventh fastest.
Yeah.
And it was so close. I mean, obviously, people don't like balance of powers, well, especially Toyota don't. But I mean, the Ferrari were quickest on a 29.5. Porsche was second, a tenth slower. Toyota were moaning about this extra weight, were third, 0.2 slower. This is a 3.5 minute lap. And the top three are covered by 0.3.
Unbelievable.
Who was next after Toyota? Then after Toyota, the Peugeots were next, and the Cadillacs were behind the Peugeots.
See, I don't get all this weight and power handicapping, because if you give a spec of this is the spec, and you've got to follow that spec. And if you have a brilliant engineering team like Red Bull that follow the spec and nail it, they should be rewarded. I don't get all this handicapping.
Well, I know, I agree. In Formula One, it shouldn't happen, but in GTs, it's worked so well in GT3. Okay. And it's sort of, they say to manufacturers, well, look, we'll make you level. If you come in, we'll give you a chance to win. So it's really the carrot to get the teams there. And GT3 is so entertaining. Even if you've got a BMW beating a Ferrari, it looks weird on the track, but, that's what happens. So it's a question of whether you want the racing to be, brilliant, but even if it's a bit staged. But, once the racing stage, it would be so good. I mean, there's 16 hypercars testing now. This new formula from
amazing.
There's about 4 last year.
So good.
So how many we've got? We've got 16 hypercars from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 manufacturers.
Any standout drivers?
No, only Mike Conway crashed his Toyota. Sorry, Mike. Sorry. But next year, we've got BMW, Acura, Honda, Alpine, Lamborghini, and maybe even this weird Isotta Francini. So we could have 12 manufacturers, 2 cars each, 24 cars minimum, and that's 3 drivers. That's 48. That's a lot of drivers. 72 professional drivers being paid to race. I mean, it's wonderful for the drivers' world, as Group C was, which of course was the decade which we talk about with the Porsche film, that gave so many people like me, a chance to win at Le Mans, a paid job.
I love what
So
Derek
so
Bell
excited.
said on that video. Actually, I don't. You probably haven't seen that before, because I did a couple of little interviews with the guys,
Yeah.
and he said if it wasn't for Porsche, you wouldn't know who he was.
Yeah.
They gave him that opportunity, and it's sort of the hairs on the back of your neck stand up really, and you can see life's all about serendipity and sliding doors and everything, isn't it? But he certainly had his break with Porsche.
Yeah. So very jealous of all of you that booked in for Le Mans. Have a wonderful
Yes.
weekend. From one extreme to the other, Formula E, another world championship in Indonesia, very hot.
Jakarta.
Yeah. And it's weird, Formula E, it's weird. It was dull racing. They almost said they were flat out. Certain circuits just seemed, sometimes they're all backing off, trying to not lead. And then all of a sudden you get Jakarta circuit, which I couldn't tell why was any different. Really hot. And also certain powertrains that dominated, like Jaguar, also with their Envision B team that have been dominating with the championship leader. Where's my name's championship leader? You know him. Can't find it. Nick Cassidy, of course. Nick Cassidy. They all qualified right down the back, Jaguar. And it was Maserati and Porsche that had the right computer program. So we had two pretty processional races, to be honest. But the big headline really was Max Günther winning for Maserati on the second day. So Maserati winning was quite a thing. It's the first single-seater race they've won since 1957.
Wow. How's your Maserati from the Hendy Group?
My Maserati. I'm a Maserati man. I was waving the Italian flag when I saw Günther winning.
But Maserati are a very unusual brand to be pushing electric racing. Really
someone must have come, knocked on the door and said, it's been good for them now they won. It wasn't good for them when they're at the back of the grid, but interesting.
Wow.
So the other highlight of the weekend was Sam Bird once again knocking his Jaguar teammate Mitch Evans off the road, which I mustn't laugh because it wasn't a very good thing for Sam to have done twice. So
any argy-bargy afterwards or not?
No, there was nothing really. I mean, Mitch Evans, who's I think one of the star drivers of Formula E, so he was struggling with his Jaguar, not helped in race one by his teammate. They were dicey over 8th or 9th place as well. But he got into 3rd place in race 2. But he just didn't have the energy, the reserve energy. His computer program wouldn't work.
What a load of talk.
But because there's such tight tracks, he managed to back up everybody. I think the front two were like 20 seconds ahead of him in race 2, but he got into 3rd place and then he just backed him up. Because when it's tight and twisty, you just go off, you just coast and regen. They can't get by you. So then when you get to the straight, you can have full power, the same as they've all got. So they can't get you past you on the straight. And even the attack mode, the only overtaking that happened when people peel off the wrong line off to get the attack mode and they lose a couple of places. But to show how ridiculous attack mode is, I've said, someone had a puncture on the first lap of the first race. So the strategist is on the radio saying, right, take a time attack and pit for a new tyre. So literally, they want to get rid of these time attacks. The time attacks are something they don't want to use because they lose places coming off and they don't give you enough extra power to really get back a place.
So should we be looking for Checo Perez's replacement in Formula E? Because there's some phenomenal drivers there.
I'm going to cough again. Well, long as it's Jake Dennis.
Yeah.
So Jake Dennis with the Andretti with his Porsche power, he had 2 second places and he's back in the championship now. Good. Pascal Wehrlein for Porsche won the first race. He now leads the championship at 1 point ahead of Jake Dennis. And Nick Cassidy, that had been leading the championship, is now 5 points behind. So it's quite exciting for championship-wise. They've only got 5 races left. One in America, where they go to Portland. London. Yeah, two in Rome and 2 in London. And it's all finished by the end of July, Formula E. But it's an exciting points battle, and it's brilliant. Now that Maserati are winning, I think Formula E is great.
Hendy Motor Group, Maserati.
Go to Hendy Performance down in Poole, get your order in, have a Maserati Ghibli like I've got on loan at the moment, which is a lovely, lovely car.
Let's go to 2 wheels, World Superbikes in Italy.
They've got a bit boring. See, this Bautista boy won 3 again in his Ducati. He's now won a record-breaking 14 out of the first 15 races, which is pretty demoralising. Yet again, Toprak Razgatlioglu on his Yamaha had 1 third place in 2 seconds. That's sort of the same. But Jonathan Ray, that used to be the other one of the three, is dropping back at 2/5 and a fourth in his Kawasaki. So Ray's not winning anymore. And in fact, he's now fourth in the championship behind Italy's Andrea Locatelli, another Yamaha man. Actually, funnily enough, I met the boss of Ducati Motorsport, was in Indy 500 with us, because Graham Rahal has Ducati dealerships in Indianapolis, and he was a guest of Graham Rahal, as I was. And I asked him why, there isn't another Ducati rider, another Yamaha rider that can match Bautista or Locatelli, not like Razgat Diogo. And he really just basically said that the depth of talent just isn't there. The real talents in MotoGP, and Superbikes is a bit of a second-rate formula slightly, even though Ducati are dominating, and it's just there aren't enough good riders. But he says they're very tricky things to ride, because they're full of traction controls and trick stuff, and you have to have experience to learn how to get the best out of them. So
I know a good driver is a good driver, but sometimes you drive something different than you have, and you really just warm to it, and just it clicks, everything clicks.
Yeah.
So
because we've got our champion, Bradley Ray, the British champion, and he's done 15th or something. He's on the same. I said to the Ducati guy, "Are these privateers getting the same bikes?" He said, "Yeah, they all have the same Ducatis." Bradley's got the same Yamaha, one assumes. But apparently it's this transition. So I think in British Superbikes, they don't have traction control. They don't have a lot of the scientific bits, the anti-wheelie, all the bits and tricks. So they're tricky bikes by the sounds of it to get the most out of. But anyway, I'm getting bored saying an Alvaro Bautista. He's like Max Verstappen.
I know one thing you don't get bored of on two wheels, and we'll cover it quickly, but and they don't have anti-wheelie. The Isle of Man TT race. Whoa, what is going on there?
Have you seen the John McGuinness coming up, but he's doing a wheelie at 200 miles an hour and bringing it back?
I can't believe it. And it's not like it's on a track with runoff. If they fall off at 200 miles an hour, they're going to hurt themselves very badly. But in the Isle of Man, you're dead. It's as simple as that.
Two tweeters I'm racing four-wheel fans. Tim Harvey's was out there for a week. He rode out on his bike, and they're all tweeting pitch. And who was Chris Harris is out there. Harris is out there tweeting away, and they're all just blown away. And I've been there once. You just can't believe it.
It's a bucket list, but I'd want to be behind one of those big, thick walls.
They're still racing. They're still racing another week. It's 2 weeks worth of racing. Michael Dunlop's just equaled. Hasn't he just equaled the record now for number of wins into certain classes?
And 134, 135 miles an hour average speed. It just blows my mind. It really does. So
Luckily, the weather's beautiful.
We'll give you a full update on Isle of Man next week, because there's still bits and pieces going on now.
Yeah, lots. All the big events, the races to come.
Yep. NASCAR in St. Louis.
Yeah, NASCAR. Kyle won again, but it was the wrong Kyle. It was Kyle Busch that dominated the race.
My line.
Gateway. Kyle Larson, who I obviously follow him up, he had an awful. It's amazing, because it's a 4-hour race, 3-hour race, and he was at the back. It was that 21st, 30-second car wouldn't turn, and understeer in, oversteer out, push in, loose out, whatever they want to say. But every time they stop, they tweak and tweak and tweak, and he's with such a good team. And he did end up, in the lead briefly, I think, or at the front row. It was a story of exploding discs, or rotors to our American viewers, listeners. It's frightening, isn't it? I think that's about 4 people, just the front disc explodes when it overheats too much, or they hit the wall hard. So quite a few cautions toward the end, but Kyle Busch held off the pack. Kyle Larson got his way back to 4th. He was vying for 3rd on the last lap. He finished 4th, another Chevy. And in the Chevy sandwich were Denny Hamlin, Toyota, and Joey Logano and a Ford. So an entertaining race at Gateway, except the crowd had to wait 2 hours.
For what?
For a lightning strikes. They're amazing, American. Yeah, they're so... I don't know why, because like the golf course, the hooter goes, they're off, but the spectators are all standing out in the fields. And they had a massive crowd at Gateway in a metal grandstand. They didn't evacuate the grandstands. I mean, what are they scared of, and why do they stop doing it and not evacuate the whole area? It's a weird thing, this lightning.
That is weird. Are they not Earth because they're sitting on a grandstand? I guess it's 10 times worse.
It's just become a health and safety. It's obviously a health and safety insurance problem in America or something. If the lightning is nearby, you stop being sporty, but you don't evacuate your crowd.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so was it one to remember or one to forget? How did
that was good race? It's good, solid race.
How many out of 10 entertainment value?
It was only on six or seven. Nothing overly dramatic.
6 or 7. That's quite high.
Well, yeah.
I've never seen a NASCAR race ever in my life with a 6 or 7.
From four wheels in America back to four wheels in Europe, the GT boys, the Fanatec World, whatever, sponsored by the Paul Ricard 6 hours, 57 cars. I'm telling you about GT, balance of power, making a sport popular. 57 cars in a 6-hour race. Ended up in Mercedes 1-2, who beat the BMWs have been winning recently, but they came third with the British driver, Nick Yellerly, who's one of the stars of GT3. Unfortunately, however, with 57 cars starting, there's obviously sometimes a bit of crowding on the first lap, and a certain Lamborghini run by my brother's team, Barwell, driven by Mr. Rob Collard, got stuffed off into the barriers halfway around the first lap. You've got 3 drivers, you've got the other 2 drivers. The drivers all bring sponsorship, with 1 driver's a professional, 2 bring money, and it's just so depressing if you get. But I tell you what, I just watched that first lap or 2 to see what happened. It's this bizarre thing that these stupid super safe circuits actually create more accidents by being too super safe.
Yeah.
Because the opening lap, the cars were just half on the track, half. They were cutting corners. They were just.
They did the same in Barcelona. They did the same in Barcelona because you can go 3 or 4 wide, and if
way
the
wide.
worst,
but off the track, there are 3 or 4. They're all going in 3
you
wide.
Can't bloody do that around Singapore or Monte Carlo.
No. So because they all have this false confidence that we've got plenty of room. But, the poor old Rob Collard just got turned around and into the barrier backwards.
I know. Ricard doesn't do it for me. It's too soulless, in my opinion. Tell me the Barwell colours. What colours do they race in?
Black. The Black Bull whiskey. A whiskey, good. Like the whiskey. I like the beer team, the Ducati beer team in British Superbikes, followed by the Barwell Black whiskey, Scottish whiskey team. Not that I'm an alcoholic or anything, but it's just social drinking. So, so GT's there. And finally, the last thing was back home in Britain. The BTCC.
Around the corner from East and West Dean, just around the corner from those 2 little villages.
They probably saw the red arrows going over.
Yeah.
Thought, what are they going over? The Flaxman would probably say, no, we're over here.
But I wonder if they did the same thing, because that would have been.
They might have passed Thruxton. Yeah, were they? Let us know below in the comments below. Did the red arrows go over Thruxton?
One thing I know they do.
And the Spitfire.
One thing I know they do, the red arrows, which is just phenomenal. So the red arrows, if you're listening from another country, is like the tricolore in Italy, the Blue Angels in America. Is that
Possibly.
what they're called? Yeah,
Jet
but
display
anyway,
team.
Thunderbirds in America. So display team and RAF, and they're phenomenal. So if they say they're going to go over Westdean Country Fate at 3 minutes past 1, they will go past at 3 minutes past 1. It's phenomenal. It's just and you always see them at Goodwood Festival Speed, which is a pleasure as well. Everyone with their neck up. So how was Thruxton BTCC?
Well, glorious day.
Fastest racetrack in the UK.
Crowd, fastest racetrack where you too can passenger me round the fastest. You book it at thruxtonracing.co.uk. But the racing was a bit processional. I'm still worried about BTCC. I'm not sure, but worried mainly because Ash Sutton is just in the form of his life. He's got a car that his other teammates can't drive as quick as him. He is the Max Verstappen of touring cars. And he had 2 wins from pole position in the 2 normally the not reverse grid race. But it was all spread out at the front. I mean, there was so much entertainment in the mid-pack, the mad pack in the middle, with Mr. Collard's young son was part of the fun and games, causing chaos everywhere, as he always does. Wonderful, entertaining driver. But the first 7 cars were the same order in race 1 and race 2. I don't think that must be a world history. Sutton first, Ingram second, Hyundai, Josh Cook third, Honda, Jake Hill fourth from BMW, Dan Camish, the other Napa Ford fifth, Colin Turkington sixth, and Rory Butcher seventh. Same result, first 2 races.
Wow.
I know.
All the way down top 6. Tell me, talking about money is 7.
I said 7.
7, thanks. Talking about money is pretty vulgar, but what would Ash Sutton earn doing that? BTCC.
I have no idea.
Top driver BTCC. Let us know in the comments
No
below. No idea what their salaries are, but it's not about money for him. He's just such an amazing talent. He's so quick. I would love to see him in something else. I'd love to see
funnily
him.
enough, I was disappointed. The reverse grid race, which was won by another Napa Ford, that of Daniel Rowbottom. Interesting, shows how you can come through the day. He qualified only 14th in his Napa. Probably got some reasons why, but had a tyre problem in race 1, so he finished 24th. We had to start race 2. And he got from 24th to 11th in race 2, which put him on the front row for the reverse grid, which he won. So the Napa cars won all 3 races. But yeah, it's madness. But I mean, the mini racing, that was one of the, because they're having different support races this weekend.
They haven't got Ginetta anymore. They've got
no Ginetta. They're having different ones. The Formula 4 single seaters, good one for William McIntyre, dominated the last race. And Porsches, of course, raced there. But I think the minis were the star of the day. There's one, if you look on the videos, it's on Twitter today. I probably tweeted it. That they come 4 abreast into the chicane, and the guy on the outside was just braked ridiculously late. And he just sticks the car sideways, just a scram of speed. Then it was massive. Of course, it was just entertaining. They all love the minis.
Good stuff.
So,
there's
an entertaining day.
There's a couple of other things to cover as well. Well, actually, one other thing I want to cover, because I love Caterham racing, as do you, and the boys were over in Zandvoort. I say boys, people. There were girls as well, people.
I bet there was some beer drinking in Amsterdam involved as well. I bet,
Well, they've stayed for a bit of a strategy meeting in Amsterdam for a couple of nights, so they're back.
They did
back tomorrow.
Strategy, a bit of a trip to the Caterham boys. Was that all 4 classes went all the way to Zandvoort? No, the Academy don't go.
Academy didn't go. I think the highlight, got to mention Dom Mansperger in the 310s. He won all 3 races, so he went away a very happy boy, back to Germany as a very happy boy. So, but they loved Zandvoort. Everyone I spoke to said they love Zandvoort.
Round the banking in a Caterham.
Yeah, they absolutely loved it. So, good on them.
What about Joe? Where did Joe finish?
We don't like to talk about Joe's results at the moment. He's not having the best run, but he opted, instead of hitting someone, he opted for a big sausage curb, which pushed him off the track on his last race. But so he finished last in the last race and sort of mid to.
Who won his 2 races then?
Well, it was again back to Fred Chiddicks and Charlie Lower. They're both doing incredibly well. But Mark Kendall, he had a win, his first ever win. So Mark was always fast. He's ex-motorbike racing driver. So he's always fast. But he had his first win. And David Rook got on the podium, but I heard from someone that he might be having his place taken away, which, poor David, because he really deserves a podium.
What's he done?
I don't know. I was trying to find out before we recorded this, but he wouldn't have been a naughty boy because he's a good boy. He's a good doctor, the GP, and he's very fast.
Fun without a roof, Caterhams. Fun with a roof, minis. This is where you can go for budget racing. You don't have to go and spend. Well, it's still a lot of money, but it's not. It's good value for money racing. Caterhams or minis, starring at the weekend.
Still costs a lot of bloody money, any sort of racing. But yeah, it's just good stuff to watch as well. Literally wheel to wheel. I think the top 3 in one race finished within a couple of few thousands of each other. So it's tight stuff. What have we got coming up next week? Of course, we got Le Mans, which is going to be fantastic. I'm very excited about that. How much of that will you watch? You watch a lot of it live?
Yeah, much as I can. I'm taking passengers around Thruxton on the Saturday. If you want to be at Thruxton on the Saturday or the Friday, I've still got some booking room available.
No, you just have your phone on the dashboard with Le Mans playing as you're driving around with the passengers.
I'll be following it closely. MotoGP is probably the start, big event. Danny Mugello. I mean, there's no better track for bikes. So that will be an epic weekend of watching MotoGP in Mugello. And that's the only other, that's it as far as international racing, apart from always NASCAR. But NASCAR is a road course down at Sonoma in California this weekend. Well, the interesting thing, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, that this Kiwi, the Aussie supercar superstar Shane van Gisbergen, is going to be racing quite a good car around Sonoma. So I'm expecting Shane to be up at the front and maybe upsetting a few of the regular Americans.
Well, we'll see if you...
And of course, there's TT racing all week.
Yeah, we'll see the TT racing. There's no Grand Prix, of course, Formula 1. That goes to Canada in a couple of weeks' time. But there's still plenty of action for next week. So make sure you come and join us because we appreciate every view we get.
Le Mans is this weekend. It's not 2 weeks' time. They've got to be going now.
It is this weekend, isn't it?
I think.
Get your calendar out. Get your schedule out. Show the
No.
viewers that are watching on YouTube your calendar.
It's not on my list. That's the whole point. It's not there. That's why I'm checking myself.
Oh, you made me worry now. All this time talking about Le Mans.
Well, come on, who can tweet quick enough? Come on.
Le Mans 2023 is Saturday 10th of June to Sunday 11th of June. Yes.
Yeah.
3 p.m. to 3 p.m. GMT, 3 p.m. No, BST, British Summertime. That's it.
Open a beer for me if you're at Le Mans. Open a beer for me, or two. Help make the mountain of beer bottles.
You stay there. I need to talk to you. I got some gossip for you. We can't tell the rest of it.
Cheers, everybody.
See you.